What's going on, guys? Today, I'm going to get you ready for the 2025 FIVB Women's World Championships by previewing some of the top teams to watch. Now, I took the luxury of going through and picking my top 8 teams, and I'm going to break them down a little bit about their roster, how they've been doing lately, how they've done historically at the World Championships, and then, of course, because this tournament format is so damn lazy, I'm going to give you my full predictions for each of these teams all the way to the semifinals. Now, we're going to go alphabetically, so we're going to get it started at the top of the list with none other than Brazil. Now, the Brazilian women are coming into the 2025 World Championships with their sights set on one thing and one thing only. That is gold. Despite all their success, Brazil has never won a gold medal at the Women's World Championships. Always the bridesmaid, they have the most silver medals of all teams, and they've medaled at 6 of the 8 past World Championships since their first medal when they hosted back in 1994. The lack of gold has been starkly felt recently as well. After a dominant decade in the late 2000s and early 2010s, this team hasn't won a gold medal since the 2017 World Grand Prix. The worst of all of that is that they've probably been one of the most consistent teams in a post-COVID world. Of the 8 international events, they've medaled at 6 of them and have only missed the semifinals once. This team does have a bit of a turnover from Paris, but mostly down the middle, and also has some of the best young talent in the world. Their big centerpiece, of course, is Gabi, who is arguably the best player in the world, is definitely the best all-around player of the world, but the supporting cast around her is pretty sick. Julia Bergman is showing that she has no slouch and took a lot of minutes in the VNL, and the other Julia Kudis, is showing that she can be among the elite middles in the world and might be one of the best already. She led the entire VNL in blocking this year. Unfortunately for Brazil, they will be missing one of their biggest offensive powers in Ana Cristina, who's still recovering from surgery after a meniscus tear in this year's VNL. While that will be a huge offensive blow for Brazil, as Ana Cristina has proved to be one of the best young offensive talents in this game, they will be getting also a big defensive boost as they'll also have Nieme return as their libero. She led the team both in digs and in passing in the 2024 Paris Olympics. And that'll mean a big thing for this Brazilian offense when she's back there and is able to take more reps in serve receive, taking a little bit of load off the outsides, Bergman and Gabi, and also keep some rallies alive. You know that Brazil is going to be feeling a little bit more confident with her wearing the opposite color jersey. The biggest impact for Brazil through all of this is probably going to be their right side. Now, we saw them really struggle with that in the VNL finals. They used 3 different options, and it's really a toss-up of who we're going to see slot into the opposite position. Most of us are going to expect Rosa Maria. She's done that for the past few seasons, and she plays also on the opposite in Japan, but can she be effective enough at this level, especially since Brazil doesn't have Ana Cristina on the left side? Now, Brazil finds themselves in Pool B alongside Puerto Rico, France, and Greece, and should easily move on because that's how easy this tournament is. Round of 16 is probably going to be against the Dominican Republic, and while that has been a good rivalry at times, these two teams don't match up to each other, and ultimately they will find themselves in a quarterfinal position against China. Now, a matchup against China can be pretty interesting because they both play pretty similar styles, with a really dependent on their left side attacking with a high volume that goes out there. However, Brazil just does it better, and I'm expect them to get all the way to the semifinals, where we will probably get what everyone would expect to be the finals, as Italy and Brazil are currently lined up to match up in the semis, and there's no changing that. What do you guys think? Does Brazil end their medal drought here, or are they going to be left wanting more? Now, if there's a dark horse right now in women's volleyball, I have to give it to China. If there's one team that I could see upending the status quo right now, it has to be China. With one of the youngest starting rosters in the VNL, they were just a set away from upsetting Poland at home for a semi-final berth, and then who knows what could have happened. China is 3rd all-time in overall world championship medals, and they're actually a rare team with some previous success in the early days of volleyball, winning 2 in a row in the 80s and 82 in the 86, but then also some recent success with a couple of medals recently, silver losing to the US in 2014, and then picking up a bronze in 2018. They were serious medal threats in Paris, narrowly losing to Turkey in 5 in the quarterfinals, and have had some of the most surprising young players in this VNL this year. On paper, China is making one of the biggest upgrades to the roster for the World Championships by adding Li Yingying, but by all reports, it doesn't sound like she'll be ready, and at most she'll be playing a supporting role coming in off the bench. However, I really don't think that matters for China, considering Menji Wu led the VNL in scoring and Yushan Zhuang was 3rd. So left side scoring definitely will not be an issue for this Chinese team. And remember that youth I mentioned earlier? Look no further than 16-year-old Xuan Zhang, who somehow I kind of feel like she went underneath the radar by leading her team all the way to a top 8 finish at only 16 years old. We're really going to have to watch her to see how she can do at the pressure of the World Championships, but I think we're seeing something special in development for China right now. China will have to get through the gauntlet of Pan Am teams in Pool F, which they should do pretty easily before a round of 16 matchup with France. If they can get by the French, it's a quarterfinal matchup with Brazil, and as much as I love this Chinese team and really think that both of these have really high-powered, balanced offenses, and this match should be a really good one, I will be giving the advantage to Brazil. Next up, there's no question who the favorite team is coming into this tournament, and if anyone is going to say otherwise, you're absolutely crazy. Italy is running a 29-match win streak, which is absolutely historic, never before seen in women's international volleyball, and they've also won the past 3 events, right? They're back-to-back VNL champs and also won last year's Olympics. I'll be really real about this. I'm not sure there's a team in the world right now who's able to catch them. The reality is that I don't think Velasco and company are competing against the field. They're competing against their own legacy. They're not just competing for medals, they're competing to be considered one of the best teams of all time. They're up against the juggernauts of the Soviet Union and Japan in the 60s and the 70s, against China in the 80s, and of course Cuba in the 90s. And volleyball was a much different topography back then. Historically, however, the World Championships have not been kind to the Italian women. While they sit only 8th all-time in medals with 3, and their only gold going back all the way to 2002. However, recent history is on their side, as those other 2 medals did come recently with a silver back in 2018 and then the bronze in 2022. The reality is that there's not much to say about this roster. Italy was one of the few teams who brought all of the big guns to the 2025 VNL, so we pretty much know what they look like. They're a well-oiled machine with depth galore. Agono isn't playing well. You've got Antropova. Some might even say she's better, but we're not touching that today. When you go down this offense, Farin Denesi might be the best middle pairing in the world. Oro, silky smooth, one of the top setters in the world. Di Gennaro might be the best libero ever. Doesn't matter. Silla, DeGradi, Giovannini, Nervini, they have so much quality throughout the roster. It just oozes everywhere. Now, I've made the mistake of doubting this team before the VNL, and I've learned my lesson. I will not be doing that again, and I'm going to call them right now as the hands-down favorites to win the 2025 World Championships. Italy is looking to be the first team since Cuba in 2000 to be the team to hold both the Olympics and the World Championships at the same time, so it's only fitting that the Cubans are going to be in their pool with them alongside Belgium and Slovakia. If they're able to stay awake through all of those 3 dongs and make it into the round of 16, Germany should be light work for them, and the reality is Poland in the quarterfinals is probably going to look a lot more like the VNL, where it was an absolute 3-dong in the semis between Italy and Poland. The match, however, that everyone is going to watch is Italy's semifinal, when they are going to be taking on Brazil. As I said before, that's final that everyone's going to expect. We're going to get it in the semifinals, but hopefully it's going to be a banger. Statistically speaking, Japan is actually the all-time leader in active teams for the World Championships. They sit 2nd all-time with 7 World Championships medals, behind only the Soviet Union, who don't exist anymore. Unfortunately for Japanese fans, only one of these results have come in this millennia, and that goes all the way back to 2010. However, Farhad Akbas has brought a really new aggressive playstyle to this Japanese team, which has been layered upon their crisp execution and frustrating defense, and has quality just about everywhere. Everyone was expecting them to have a rebuilding year. I especially did after the retirement of Sarina Koga, but instead they have stepped up in multiple different ways. They rely really heavily on their trio of outsides, Mayushikawa, Yoshino Sato, and Yukiko Wada, and their offense is run by the silky smooth Nanami Seki. This Japanese team is a lot of fun to watch. They play volleyball in the right way, and Akbas's offense has really brought them a spark. I think this is a team that could make a deep run this year and be a problem for years to come. Fortunately for Japanese fans, though, this team has a huge opportunity to make a run in this tournament, both by personnel and by schedule. They find themselves in Pool H alongside Serbia, Ukraine, and Cameroon. And now the thing is, it doesn't matter if they win that first match against Serbia, because by all probability, they're going to match up once again in the quarterfinals. So all you really need to do is to be able to beat Serbia once. And now on paper, once again, this looks like a tall order with Serbia being the two-time defending champions. But if you've watched the VNL at all, you'll know just how struggling this Serbia team is right now. And they have never been in a more vulnerable position to be upended than this year. And Japan just might be the team who's able to do it. Poland's resurgence in women's volleyball over the past few years is one that is going to be studied for years to come. One of the original volleyball nations with Olympic and World Championship medals in the 50s and 60s, Poland hasn't made it past the quarterfinals of the World Championships since 1962. And between 67 and 2018, they only qualified for 6 of the 14 World Championships, never making it past the round of 16. That drought, however, ended in 2022 when Poland made the quarters and finished their best ever 7th, while introducing this team to the top tier of women's volleyball. Since then, Poland has been a real threat, qualifying for only their 2nd ever Olympics since 1968 and winning 3 straight bronze medals at the VNL. Poland relies on really solid play, really strong blocking, and a heavy reliance on the opposite in their offense. Luckily for them, Stysiak and Smarzek are 2 of the best opposite duos in the world, and with Lethal Barbie being the centerpiece at one of the best middle cores in the world, they're really able to do some damage. On top of that, this roster is going to be bolstered by Oliva Rozanska, who's going to be coming back and joining the outside core of Lukashik, Czernianska, and Damasko, who was really good at the finals. There's little doubt that this Polish team is elite. No doubt about it. I've really enjoyed watching this past few years, but I think that breaking their World Championship medal drought is going to be really unlikely in 2025. Coming out of Pool G and through the round of 16 should be pretty easy for Poland, but they're on a collision course with Italy for the quarterfinals, and I think that's just worst case scenario for them. Let's just face it, Poland is Lidl Italy. They have very similar rosters designed to block a lot of balls and have an offense centered around fantastic opposites, and Italy pretty much does it better at every position, especially now that Volej is gone. I unfortunately think that the pretty much near hour and shower that we saw in the semifinals of the VNL is going to be a lot more what we're going to see here in the quarterfinals of the World Championships. Now, I'm not saying that Poland doesn't have a shot. This is a quality team with really good coaching who can play against Italy, but on paper and just in reality, Italy has them in every single position, and I would be a little surprised if Poland took them down. If there's one team, actually one country, but we're going to talk about this team. If there's one team absolutely smashing the panic button right now, it has to be Serbia. The 2-time defending world champions are looking to be only the 3rd team ever to go for 3 in a row, but instead they're limping into these world champions like puppies with their tails between their legs. The Serbian women have been nothing short of dominant in the second half of the 2010s and early 2020s, winning back-to-back world championships in 18 and 22, while grabbing Olympic silver and bronze in 16 in 2020. Not to mention appearing in 4 straight European Championship finals. And however, everything started to crumble in 2024, where they were abysmal in the 2024 VNL and then managed only a single win against host France before being bounced in an unceremonious 3-dong by the eventual champs Italy in the quarterfinals. Like most teams, Serbia pushed a youth movement for the 2025 VNL, but unlike most teams, it went really bad. They went 0-8 through the first 2 weeks, including a terrible and embarrassing 0-4 at home in week 2 in Belgrade. Luckily, Mama Boskovic came through in week 3, helped them through 3 wins, but that was really close to relegation for a team that is considered one of the premier teams in volleyball. There is some good news for Serbia, however. Boskovic will finally be healthy and ready to go once these world championships come up, and she'll be joined by a familiar face when Maja Onjenovic joins as their setter. However, at 41 years old, she's not quite the setter she once was, but we're not entirely sure how effective she actually will be in the later stages of this tournament once they're playing the more elite teams. I know I'm acting a little doom and gloom here, but it's not all bad. They do have some really good young prospects. Of course, Hena Krtojic is one of the best blocking prospects, if not the best blocking prospects that we've seen in a long time. And over on the outside, they've got a couple of 2004s and Alessandra Uzelac and Vanya Ivanovic, who were both really quality this year in the VNL. As I mentioned before, they are going to be in Pool H alongside Japan, Ukraine, and Cameroon. And it doesn't really matter what's going to end up happening. I mean, if they lose to Ukraine and Cameroon, then they'll have other issues altogether, but it's all probably going to come down with a matchup with Japan. Unfortunately for Serbia, I think that's going to be a matchup that's going to be really tough for them, as Japan's precise execution might just be the thing to really slow them down. But maybe Tijana Boskovic will be able to lead them to a 3rd world championship in a row. Sometimes when I think about the Turkish women's national team, I long for the days of 2023, where it looked like they were hands down the best team in the world, that there was no doubt that Turkey was going to be one of the dominant forces in women's volleyball. And I know it's really unfair to put that kind of pressure onto Turkish women's volleyball. They only qualified for their first World Championships less than 20 years ago in 2006 and have only made it to the quarterfinals twice. This is really a country that's only been relevant on the volleyball stage for the past decade for both club and country. But something for me just longs for those days where they just looked absolutely untouchable, where they had just picked up Santarelli from Serbia and Melissa Vargas had just been naturalized. They went on a 12-match win streak at the end of the VNL and then went absolutely undefeated throughout the European Championships, and it just looked like they were the best team in the world. They just played with this quiet confidence. They had this chip on their shoulder, and they knew how to work hard, and now they finally had the quality to be able to do it as well. And since then, now that confidence is just trying to change to cockiness and indifference. It seems like Santarelli's squad just expects to win on skill alone, and whenever they start getting pushed, that's when they start breaking down. While their best ever run in the Olympics last year to a fourth looks really, really good, the way they got absolutely clinicked by Italy in the semis was just a really true indication of where they stood in international volleyball. And now, similarly to this year's VNL, they looked really, really good at the beginning, getting some really solid wins before going 0-4 at the end of the competition, losing to Czechia, Italy, Serbia, and Japan to finish 6th. I know we need to give these teams a little grace, but this is a Turkish team who wants to be the best, who has the best coach in the world, and continues to naturalize player to kind of hoard some of the best talent. And now I know I'm going to get a bunch of Turks in the chat explaining to me just why you should be allowed to have now 3 naturalized players on the roster, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if Melissa Vargas is naturalized. If she's going to play like she did in the VNL, I don't think it's going to matter that much. But, and this is the big but, they have the roster, they have those players, and they have the coaching. If Santarelli can get this team on the same page, playing like they did back in 2023, they could make a very serious deep run. They are on the side of the bracket without any of the top teams, and they could find themselves in the finals really, really quick. The big thing for them is, can they find an outside who can do it all? And not even do it all, can you just pass the ball decently and score maybe 10 to 15 points a game? That's all we ask. That's all we ask for one outside hitter to be able to do that. Otherwise, they've got the roster all the way through. They've got the coaching. This is a team that could make a very serious run if they can get everything together. If Turkey can get themselves out of Pool E, which, I mean, we all expect they should with Canada, Bulgaria, and Spain, that should be easy enough. Their path to the finals has Czechia, USA, and Japan. They don't have to play any of the top teams. There's no Italy, there's no Brazil, there's no China, there's no Poland even, until they get to the finals. So if Turkey can bear down right here and make this their best tournament since 2023, we might see them win their first ever World Championship medal. Finally, wrapping things up with the USA. And now, if there is one team in the world that is in a true rebuilding stage, it's the United States of America. New coach, new program, lots of new faces, and wild range of expectations from everyone's, from media to fans, and of course, what's inside of their own building. Now, with the majority of the 2024 Paris Olympians either retiring or taking some time off, the US went with a full youth movement to try to get as many players up to that international standard as possible. Externally, there's been a lot of feelings about this process from both fans and media alike, leading to a lot of different views of how successful the VNL process was for the United States in 2025. Personally, I think that this is the exact approach that the US should be taking. The United States is the only team that's qualified for the 2028 Olympics. They're the only team whose results from now until 2028 do not matter. So they have that luxury of taking some time and trying some things out. A lot of American fans don't really realize exactly how different NCAA volleyball is from international volleyball. Not only like the rules are a huge part of things, but the whole mentality and how that game is played is much different at the international level than you see in the NCAA. Now, just because I say that results don't really matter, it doesn't mean that they don't matter at all. And I think that these World Championships are going to be a huge indication of exactly where this American team is at 4 years out from the Olympics. And historically, the the American women have not done that well at the World Championships, despite their absolute dominance at the Olympics, where they've medaled at the past 6 editions. The last United States medal at the World Championships was 2014 when they won gold, and that's one of only 2 World Championship medals in this millennium. The World Championship roster will look slightly more familiar to American fans, as Chiako Bogu is going to be now available for Eric Sullivan to pick. She'll be joining her other Paris 2024 Olympians in Jordan Poulter, Dana Redke, and Avery Skinner. Truth be told, it's going to be those 4 athletes who are going to be really expected to carry the load for the team. We saw in the finals and in week 3 that Avery Skinner was getting a lot of volume offensively. Now, there's going to be a few other questions here for the United States heading into this World Championships. And I think the other big one is can they find that secondary scoring on the left side? And if so, who is it going to be? We saw a lot of Sarah Franklin through with the VNL, and she'll probably be the first one that they go with. But the other one is who's going to be able to carry the load at an international level on the opposite. And we've seen 5 different players suit up in the opposite position for the United States this year. But I really think that their best option right now is probably Maddie Skinner. Of all of their athletes who played in the opposite, she scored the most points for them and really looks like to be the most ready. But I would also look at Stephanie Samity, who had really good years professionally. Samity was one of the top scorers in Japan, got some time towards the end of VNL, and I'd be expecting more for the World Championships as well. Now, I know for a long time there was a libero debate amongst this team, but I think that's honestly done and dusted. Lexi Rodriguez was statistically the best one in passing and in defense, and I think she's the bona fide number 1 until Justine Wong-Orantes comes back. The Americans are going to be alongside Czechia, Argentina, and Slovakia, which even with a younger roster should be in no problem. And if they can take care of my Canadians in the round of 16, they'll most likely have Turkey in the quarterfinals. And now, depending on which Turkey team it could either be a really, really tough matchup or a massive opportunity. Regardless, I think a lot of people are going to be watching this American team really closely in the 2025 World Championships. All right, guys, that is my breakdown for the 2025 Women's FIVB World Championships. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments. As always, make sure you come join us at the Discord. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely popping off for the World Championships. It's the best online volleyball community to follow all of the top competitions. Doesn't matter where you're from. We've got people from absolutely all around the world, and it's a great place to watch volleyball. So let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you very much. We'll see you again soon.